Or they start, I think, a year in advance. They start putting these amazing events.
Here at the
Please welcome Ms. Terry Nelson.
Terry Nelson Festival. No, actually, it's Terry Nelson coming up to the podium, and oh, she's already up there. Okay, I'll let her talk.
We truly honored the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and his wish for a dream for America. This place looks like a rainbow, and that's what we all want on the commission. As the co-chair of the commission, I'd like to say welcome. Thank you for coming and supporting this historical event. This is our 27th parade, and Dr. King would have been proud. We must not forget that our past mayor, who was once a state representative, Wellington Webb, and his wife, Wilma Webb, were the two veterans who worked on getting this Colorado holiday established. In 1975, he started his push. He worked for 3 years. The bill did not pass, but he did not give up. And when his wife, State Representative Wilma Webb, at that time, took over, she took up the mantle for the bill. And it took her, again, another 3 years. This has been almost 8 years in the making. And finally, the state of Colorado said yes. And this is what yes looks like. And it has been what yes has looked like for 27 years. Thank you, Colorado. And we hope to see you next year.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the governor of the great state of Colorado, Governor John Hickenlooper.
Well, I hear some disagreement out there in the course. Let me say welcome and thank you all for making the cold march. Martin Luther King said that human progress is neither automatic or inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Today, you're all continuing that march towards justice, and we have made progress. We see that all around us as we look and see the way the world is today compared to the way it was. I don't know if many of you got a chance to see the Golden Globe Awards last night, but this year there was the winner of the Best Actress was Octavia Spencer for a movie called The Help. Now, if you remember, Denver was a city where The Help was one book, one Denver, and it's a story about domestic help in the South and their lives, and about a group of determined women that decided they were going to let the truth be told, and to change the world. It's part of that great movement. I thought what was great last night was when Octavia Spencer received the Golden Globe. She said, perhaps the best way I can say it best is to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. She said, with regard to domestics in this country now and then, Dr. King said it best. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance. And that's what she said. She thanked him for the film. That wouldn't have happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And it shows we are indeed making advances. Now let me introduce somebody who's been part of that effort, and part of those marches, and part of that work for so many years. He is already taking Denver to new heights, and he is one of the most gifted speakers, but also one of the most gifted individuals that I know. The Mayor of Denver, Michael Hancock.
Thank you so much.
I know.
Denver, are you out there? I said, Denver, are you out there? Let me say, today would have been the 83rd birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Happy birthday, Dr. King. I know today you are smiling down on this celebration as you have always done. I am so honored to be here today. Let me first acknowledge, because I believe he deserved a much better greeting before this crowd. He is someone who every day, when we ask who will go for us, who will represent us, who will stand in the gap for our children and our seniors. We got it right. And our most vulnerable. Who will raise Denver and Colorado to a national prominence. He has served as our mayor, and now he's our governor. Let's give one more time a warm thank you to our Governor, John Hickenlooper. Let me just say to you unequivocally, those of us who are students of history and students of this movement, when you look around this crowd, you recognize that we come from different backgrounds, different racial and ethnicities, different religious faiths. But we are bounded by one common goal, and that is the respect for humanity and respect for the rights of all men and women in this nation. Our greatest hope is that America lives up to its high ideals, those that have been embedded and imbued in the Constitution of the United States and in the Bill of Rights.
What does that say? Oh, I have a dream.
I want you to think back to the greatest movement that this world has ever seen. And I want you to think about the men and women who came from different racial backgrounds. The movement was great because it wasn't just a black movement. It was an American movement. The movement was great because it wasn't just a Baptist movement. It was a Catholic movement and a Jewish movement and a Protestant movement. The Muslims were there. The agnostics were there. The movement was great because it brought people from all corners of the world and all corners of this country. When they blocked the marchers from going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, people came from all over the country to show support for those African Americans who would march simply for their right to vote. When they pelted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his marchers in Atlanta, Georgia, people came from all over the country to support them and to stand up for their right to be treated like human beings and disregard the Jim Crow laws. Folks, this was never just a black movement. This was an American movement where all people came together to support the United States of America. And so today, as we celebrate the 83rd birthday of Dr. King, as we celebrate the 27th anniversary of our coming together to celebrate Dr. King's birthday, let us not forget the high ideals that Dr. King and his contemporaries stood for. Here on the stage are many of those elders and faith-based leaders who stood with Dr. King and stood with us here in Denver, Colorado at our darkest hour. Out there are those who had to be carried and pushed in today, who believed with the ideas of Dr. King and marched with him and cried with him and prayed with him. And not all of them looked like Dr. King. Let us not forget the many races and religions and faiths and understandings that came together to celebrate. This was indeed an American movement, and we must never ever forget that. So today, as mayor of this great city, it is my pleasure to present this proclamation to our chairwoman, Terry Nelson. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a great American leader known as the conscience of America, who was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. And whereas on April 4th, 1985, after 10 years of struggle, Colorado's Governor Dick Lamb signed the historic legislation into law making the birth date of Dr. King a Colorado holiday. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Colorado Holiday Commission's mission is to educate, celebrate, and honor the legacy of Dr. King.
I'm sure we both lived in places that were probably the first places to make it legal.
Struggle, civil and human rights year-round. And whereas 2012 marks the 27th annual holiday celebration in Colorado, the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Riders, and the 6th celebration of the African-American Invitational Rodeo for the National Western Stock Show. And whereas the national theme is Remember, Celebrate, Act, a day on, not a day off. And whereas the 2012 Colorado theme is Freedom Rides On. Now therefore I, Michael B. Hancock, Mayor of the City and County of Denver, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby officially proclaim today, January 16, 2012, to be known as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Colorado Holiday Commission and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Heritage Rodeo Day. Presented here to Dr. Terry Nelson, Chairman of the Colorado Holiday Commission. Thank you. Hey, one last thing before I leave. I'm going to ask all of our elected officials who are on stage to come forward. Not everyone's going to speak today, but I know there's some here. A lot of members of the Denver City Council are back here. Raise your hand. I see our District Attorney Mitch Morris. He made the walk. He is here. I see our governor. We have some state legislators who are here with us as well. I want to make sure we get them all. Give our hand. I saw our police chief and manager of safety made the walk as well. We want to thank you all for coming out today, and thanks for making this a memorable day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Hancock. Dr. King said, all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. Think about that, painstaking excellence. As your fingertips and toes are freezing out there, think of that painstaking excellence that it takes to put on these events around the Dr. King holiday. One of the leaders of the commission is our dear friend Vern Howard, who I'm going to turn the podium over to for the rest of the program. Vern?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Ms. T. Banks a hand. This lady